Still in the OR?
He's watching our morning meeting right now.
Well, he's only gonna see that until I get Jeff over here, because I don't know how to reset it for that camera for it.
Okay,
But
I-
we're live.
I kind of like that view.
They've ordered a new camera, like that one, for out there, so it'll be better.
Heard that in the last commissioners meeting I tuned into. Okay,
Rain, free, hashtag maybe? Let me go, capital R, capital T, try that, see if not, I'll go look. I think that's what it is.
Bobby, do you have the,
I have 30. I think frankly, 30. I'm not sure.
can you pull up, you probably can, the latest, what's been spent in the lists we talked about, well, CCD, public safety and jail lit. The current, well, basically like the budget summary you give us several days prior to our meetings, what the current budget looks like, what's spent, what's left.
48, 3.
Okay. 1170,
92.39.
okay. Jail, 1223,
Hashtag rain tree, capital R, capital T. 3,284,389.
thank you. Do you know when the bond payment, that's an awful lot of balance on the jail lid, you know, when the next 7 million comes up to be paid?
The next bond, December, they're always in June and December.
And we have a 3.294 million balance
Full lit.
jail. Really? Oh, it's half a year. Yeah, that's 6 months. But right now we have a 3.2 million balance. I hear you right? Yeah. right before you came, Susan, we talked about maybe looking at CCD, which is 1138.
Okay.
The jail lit, which is 1233, and the public safety lit. These are the ones we had to do a balancing act last summer to make everything work out. And there are probably others. Then we need to talk about new monies coming in on public safety, EMS, judicial, and the 20%, which actually, that cap's gone up for us. The jail lit that we can use for maintenance and daily operations.
So did we already talk CCD?
No, we haven't talked anything. We were
Oh.
waiting on you and Harold.
Sorry.
No problem. You okay, Harold? On the CCD, we can go back and forth if you're okay.
For now.
On the CCD, if you have that sheet in front of you, 1138, wait on everybody to get that. I can tell you what the current balance is. $1138. Cumulative capital development.
Okay, no, Cameron, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. You're our tech hero. You and Brian. Anyway, Bobby told us that the current balance in CCD 1138 is, I round, basically 248,000. 248, 380 if you want the non-rounded amount. Basically 248,000. So through, that's today, right?
What's that 248,000 number?
That's the balance as of today.
In CCD.
And that's 46%. No. I was looking at what the department request was. It's a lot more than half. That's 400,000.
40,000, is that what you're talking about on CCD?
Yeah, but that's request, but the balance on July 3rd was 400,000, so they've spent a lot down. What does that go for? Repair and maintenance, that's repair and maintenance of everything that's not repair and maintenance in individual departments. That mostly
Mostly all the buildings.
the buildings, okay. Custodial service mainly here,
Custodial service,
courthouse and
between all the buildings.
both these two buildings. Right.
And that's where you talk about, because it's.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, then, under 15,000, no, that was, no, never mind.
Okay,
$10,000 loan bill is what I think you and I talked about putting in.
For the sheriff, you mean?
For
Yeah.
the sheriff.
Put it under one contract and put it together.
Okay.
Yeah.
computer maintenance for everybody that doesn't have it in their budget. And White Estates, that's the agreement we have with the city for the,
Not just title community computer maintenance, a lot of the counties now that, can go to that two-factor authenticity. and all
Yeah.
that. A lot of the counties are making their own IT budget to be able to split all that out. So that they'll know exactly what is on computer.
Shannon and I have talked about that before too.
Yeah.
I'd be in favor of.
Yeah.
I don't know how big of a headache that is, but I mean, there's gonna be, at what point does it make sense? And then at what point does it like come back around where everything's so IT driven that now we need to track it again in each separate department? I guess I'm in favor of something like that, but then
I see
don't
what you're saying. I feel like, at least for now, it brings more visibility to it because it's hard to tell what, I don't even think Jeff's is Jeff's even called out separately or is it just lumped into?
isn't,
it's
Commissioners?
lumped into commissioner, it's called out separate or it's lumped into their, yeah. I
We
feel
think
like,
we pay Jeff out of both. We pay them out.
Well, toward the end of the
Contractual
year when one
services?
starts running out, we start.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we kind of got to play with that money to keep where it's
Right.
at. So
okay,
he's paid out of both.
it feels like it would be good to bring some visibility to it. Not that any of the money's being wasted, just,
Well, I think Jeff would like it because he said that way he can go back and look and see exactly what he's done and what he's spent on what. Whereas now we have to do a lot of hunting and searching
Yeah.
to see where it's came from.
How do we best figure that out? Who do we need at the table, or is that something readily available, like Jeff or somebody can pull up, or how do we determine?
run
per-
a vendor report on everything we paid to Jeff's company, that not necessarily,
Well,
it's
then we have-
monthly, that's gonna be other bills and stuff too.
Yeah, but then we would have Dell in there, CDWG. But we could figure out where Jeff purchases everything from.
would there be other software licenses and other contracts that would be?
Well-
in
That
there
comes,
too?
usually though, you're like the,
Does come up.
financials, the taxing system, that we usually take those out of contractual services.
Like the health department, remember she has her own contract with somebody because she needs to have that assured.
Yeah.
She had that as a separate.
And maybe if it's something that only one department uses, that makes sense. But if it's something that's used across departments, something used centrally by Jeff. What do you think?
Sorry,
You're thinking about something else.
I had to
know.
switch gears
And
real
I
quick.
said something really brilliant. I was gonna do it.
Sorry, I forgot to get
When
this.
Angela
You're
was
good.
here, she has 24,000 just in that line. She has it under systems tech, which is tech, office systems, but 24,000, because she hires another company to do that. Because if she loses it, she loses all the public health records and all the stuff from the state with the new budget funding they have. She has a totally separate, but I think Jeff helps her, but I think she gets what is that computer company 2 blocks down? Octo.
Yeah.
She hires Octo to do her repairs and keep her up and running. And that's part of that 24,000, but that's because she has a separate text.
Well, here's
Mm-hmm.
a, for instance, I should probably know, but where do we pay right stuff out of? Commissioner's budget, or in what line item does that come from? Yeah, some of that stuff in,
And that's just a yearly.
right. Some of that stuff would just be nice to see more.
I know Shannon would have some input in this too, because that's part of his background.
You know,
My feelings are if this was a project that everybody thought we should do, it's one that you can't do half-arsed. It's almost a project in and of itself that needs full year to 6 months of legwork to be done appropriately, kind of like the group insurance and all that we've been discussing this year.
You don't think we can have it done by this Wednesday?
or even this afternoon.
I
I think that. he
remember, I'm
makes a-
conservative, so I'm gonna say no.
Kyle makes a good point.
I
If we actually wanted to do it, it would take
do it right.
over
Do
the
it right.
next year. You guys could watch for all those things and start pulling them out.
Makes sense, long term.
I think this time next year, we probably, if we kept it on the front burner, it'd be something we should legitimately talk about after getting input from a lot of.
I nominate Chad to lead that up.
Getting his feet wet at this budget hearing. CCD is separate tax rate.
And so what are we expecting this year as far as receipts?
Right.
It's not good.
We dealt with it because on the, hold on, a year ago. On the Baker Tilly,
Mm-hmm.
it was going to be severely in the red, and
Mhm.
he corrected that, but it took a while to correct it because the revenues weren't coming in. So it was heading in the red until like a month or two ago.
Where'd you have to move them to? Okay, so we're expecting 637,000 in operating receipts for CCD.
Mhm. Net cash flow should be nearly 100,000 in the black, according to the latest we got from Baker Tilly, given the new information they have, so. But hey, I said I was wrong with the 46% spent to date. It is correct, because they're asking for the same 540,000 that was budgeted last year. So,
Did I get one of those cheat sheets?
oh, well, came in the mail,
Oh, we did?
email
I missed it.
over the weekend.
Brilliant. Okay, can you share? Do you mind?
Yeah, because I
Yes.
made 2 copies. Because I knew this would happen.
You knew I would get.
I didn't know it was you. I just knew it would happen.
Okay, so,
Will help you guys. I thought we already had his, and he said he has kind of worked out a few things we need. And he said whenever you guys want to talk about it, we're gonna.
okay.
Does it make sense from your point of view? I mean, I ask that question anytime we contemplate changing a structure. Yeah,
Then we have to figure out where do they come from, and what vendor they use this way. It's one budget.
Right. So if we're expecting 637,000, this budget is for 540,000. And is that what we need to do? We need to
And-
let the reserves build up
And they,
again?
and he, in your sheet there, they expect $100,000 balance. Cash flow, positive cash flow, because I said we did fix that last year. It looks like it's actually going to be fixed for a while.
It's estimating 256,000 by the end of 25 if we budget just the 540.
Mhm.
And that would give us the 43%. So,
I guess one question I have for the council is, are these still the best and most legitimate place to place repair and maintenance, custodial services, computer maintenance, and I think White State's a given. And sheriff vehicles, we moved out of this a while back. Is there any reason to adjust those other than over the next year with Jeff's help to take a closer look at computer maintenance? Because budget-wise, I think we're heading in the right direction. We're building up a little bit of reserves. Comments? Feedback, input?
I missed your statement when I filled it in.
Can anybody repeat my statement? Remember?
Exactly.
Quiz.
Were you
we're
asking?
building some reserves.
Leave it.
Yeah. Right now, we've fixed what was a bleeding problem
Right.
a year ago.
Right.
Do we leave it alone and over the next year with Debbie remembering because I won't? And Susan remembering because I won't, to incorporate, get Jeff's help? Yeah, to do what we just talked about in the last 10 minutes, as far as breaking it out by department,
And he said that he can help with that.
right?
Yes.
We good?
I think that's a good idea.
Anybody, again, questions, comments, discussion? We're good with CCD. What's next numerically? 1170 is,
Oh, I will say one other thing. My guess is in the commissioner's budget, there's computer maintenance expense. And it would be easier if it's possible to adjust things so that, for instance, all of computer maintenance came out of one place. Yeah, is that completely different from maintenance? Okay, so that's easy for you guys to distinguish. Okay. All right, that was just gonna, and then repair and maintenance, is this to the grounds and buildings?
Between two, you ever have to come up with study?
Uh-huh.
I mean, we just kind of go back.
which two, here in commissioners, or what, those two?
Commissioners and this, right.
So you're kind of used to that, make it,
It would just be
We do it
easier.
every day. It's hard to
but
It would just be easier if it was all in one fund, and I don't know if that's possible, but if it's, changing stuff back and forth between this and the commissioners. So it's like, yeah, in 24, we paid this much for repair and maintenance, but that might not be possible, so.
So this is different. The one that you mentioned, Bobby, the computer equipment and programs different than computer maintenance. But they can, if one goes low, they can go back and forth. Okay. Their ask when we get to it on Wednesday is going up $120,000 in that line,
Commissioners,
just FYI, and there's 068. Anything else on CCD? The public safety is gonna be interesting as it was a year ago. Just FYI, the net that comes to Henry County, because it was all divvied up with fire department and the other entities in the county.
So
700,000 basically, 699. So we have 700,000 in new monies. What do you think, Susan?
I want to read something that Shannon sent me and he's sent
Today?
this. Yeah, today. And then also something he's told you and I before. Now that we're increasing the amount that's coming into safety lit, we have an opportunity to kind of reorganize to make line items more simple again.
Right.
And one of his suggestions is to put all merit deputies' wages in safety lit and remove retirement. You know, we talk a lot about how we're paying sheriff retirement out of the safety lit. We could remove that and put the merit deputies' wages, their vehicles, their liability expense, so that it is, quite obvious that we're paying for the sheriff's department wages from safety lit.
Right, so this increasing in 0.05% of that whole fire. They explained when you talk to me, everybody how that.
The money coming off the
Yeah,
top.
so is
It's-
it gonna be separated, the fire department's gonna be separated out?
Just figured something magical would happen and you all would take care of, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know how. to
Right.
do it.
It's just,
See how that-
it's just the 9 that got approved.
How it will be distributed is what you're asking, and
So
I don't know.
all that
how
money
it'll
won't be
distributed.
because not everybody asked for it. It's just their
How
portion
is
of
it
it.
distributed now
We don't get
to
fire
different
departments.
townships?
It's not.
Well,
In different townships, the states on this list.
And you
That
just-
could be how this is done too, I don't know, that's why I didn't.
right, but I doubt the state would because we set it in by ordinance, so yeah, I have no idea. It's another job.
I think it's a TBD, it's to be determined.
The town may tell us.
Exactly the amount, yeah.
I like Shannon's idea. That makes a lot of sense. Now, the sheriff's retirement's retirement for the whole department. I've asked
Everybody
that,
thinks a lot.
Mayor.
Yes. Anyway, go to the sheriff.
So they're not on perf, this is their perf.
They're not, Jeff is on PERF, they're on McCready and King.
McCready and
And this pays for that?
This pays for just McCready,
It-
this is just the merit deputy, yes.
Okay,
And that's the only person
I
that
don't-
comes out of that, the PERF is the jail, I don't.
I don't think I ever asked that before.
I haven't
People
either.
have asked me, and I go, I don't know,
I haven't either.
ask Chad.
Right.
I say that 20 times a week.
Um,
Nah, that's exaggerated. Twice a week. Okay, that's
so-
good to know, because I really did not know.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this interests anybody else, but I talked to Joel and we can use this new safety lit money for all pool employees, merit and civilian. And the increase is relatively the same. We're looking at roughly $700,000 of additional safety lit funds after we give money to the volunteer fire departments. And all of the full increases are about, well, if we did full 100% average market value, it would be almost 700,000. It's almost the exact same amount. So that just helps me think about what we need to get from other places. The rest of it, and I'm guessing that Social Security and PERF can also come, for those employees, could also come from the safety lit, you think?
You said there was only 292,000 balance?
Think so?
There's only $292,000 balance? Yeah. That seems awfully low.
So I'm looking at what Addie gave out this morning, or this figure here, and it looks like you're almost at 1.75 million if you just did the merit polls, according to this sheet. And you're saying there's about 2.2-ish that will be coming in?
700,000.
Well, I mean, this is what she said. I would say if you were talking about paying all the merit polls out of safety lit,
All of merit and civilian, so their amount right here, it's 300.
you're talking about just the increase or ju-
Just the,
okay, so you said pay them out of that. I assumed you meant pay their entirety of their
I
salary.
was
That's-
16 years and just helping
Okay.
myself think about what part of the raises are.
Because I was doing math on the calculator. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not sure that works, but okay, that works better in that aspect. Yes, I mean,
I don't like when Chad looks at me like I'm crazy. that
What,
usually
Not
means I did my
crazy,
ma-
just-
Like I did my math wrong is what that.
but
usually
no,
means.
your math is close to 700,000 on the raises
You're
according to.
just about to increase.
I was talking about increases.
And what about the retirement again? What was the suggestion?
Well, so Shannon's suggestion is to remove retirement and pull it back into the general fund. He had a series of suggestions that you may remember.
No, I don't. 'Cause I'm in the outer ring.
Baby, I need my. So we could listen to Slug Tara.
Merit increase.
Let me see if I can find it. Okay. So Chad, you'll be interested in these two since you have some background and I mean, everyone will be interested, but so these are some suggestions Shannon has made. Yes, so move the $300,000 EMS contract from the public safety lit to the EMS lit. So these are kind of the basic ones. And then we increased sheriff vehicles from 64,000 to $360,000 when we submitted it. And we also increased law enforcement liability from 45,000 to 315,000 in the safety lit budget that we submitted to include the increase in cost. And then Shannon suggested reducing jail utilities, which we over budgeted in the jail lit, and pulling them into safety lit so that we could actually maintain the increase in inmate medical and jail lit, which we over budgeted last year. That wasn't sustainable.
So this would be the
We were
utilities
consuming-
line in public safety.
Increase, he was talking about, well, is it zero now?
It's zero.
Right, and because we moved it into the jail lit.
And
he's
moving it
talking
back.
About pulling it back and lowering it because
Remember-
we over budgeted.
Remember what that amount was?
Okay, so in jail lit, we budgeted utilities at 226, and then we submitted 150 this year. So he's talking about moving that 150 back into safety lit potentially. I mean, it really is just deciding where we want to pay things from. But if we do that, then we could actually budget what do we put for inmate medical? 800,000, which is a $500,000 increase in the last 2 years. From 300,000 to 800,000,
And
half
that's
a million dollars.
That's in jail lit.
You have, according to Baker Tilly, and I need to go, I guess we need to go back and do the math, but we have to cut 674,000 out of correctional lit, so we've taken more than 30%.
I know. Okay.
We're not gonna end up balanced like we have in the
Okay.
past. But we do
So-
need to look at that.
And 30% of the jail, correct? We only had 1 year this year to spend all, and then it goes back to 30%, correct?
That's what I heard Shannon say when that dust cleared on all that, straightening it up.
I'm pretty sure that's what.
Yeah,
Okay, so is this cutting? We'd have to cut 682,000 to not spend more than we're bringing in. But not necessarily because of the 30% restriction.
I just figured that's what that was. I need to,
Cause that would make it, that would be different.
we,
I have down that 810,000 can be on operations and maintenance. I think that's based on 30%. 810 is what was on the sheet that Shannon shared at our lit hearing for daily operations. So there's 810,000 of the current 3,284,000.
If you look at receipts and you take 30% of that, it's 675,000. Is that how we're supposed to figure it out?
That's the way they figured it out.
No,
And that's
it's
what,
right there.
that's what Debbie was saying we need to cut, but
Corrections needed to balance.
again, their figures are so conservative, we don't have to cut the entire 674.
Give exact amount.
Yep.
That 30% should be exactly, it should be 30% exactly of what we are receiving.
I mean, the receipt amount should be right.
Okay.
That's the what we did.
2.252 million.
Just sit, you guys just sit down. I think of you guys. Okay. You're all invited to come down. So we submitted,
Chairs, like, there's two more chairs, then if you guys are
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, because
you have the jail lit and safety lit in front of you? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, at these suggest, oh, at that. Yeah, whatever you want to look at. Well, it's just summary. I guess we got that.
20.
20%,
It's
that's right,
30 now.
80%.
They changed
Yeah,
it to
I can't,
30.
so yeah, it changed it to 30, but that was just like a one-time shot, right?
last year we didn't have a limit. Now we're back.
So just 30, so they changed it up to 30 now, so, yeah.
Is that what that 810,000 equals? I don't know. He put 810 in that sheet for the lit. when
Well, it
we
should
had the
be
lit.
higher than that, because the total receivable, estimated receivable is what on the Baker Tilly?
2.25.
I got it at 675, 829, 50.
So what's the total receivable? A little over 2 million or,
765.
okay.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
what it
30% is 675,000.
But
Shannon's listening.
historically, over the past several years, we've
Listen.
received a little bit more than that though,
He
right?
says we can spend 100% of jail lit. Are we not restricted by,
Well, not-
Shannon just said we can spend 100% of jail lit?
I thought that was the one.
It depends on when it was enacted, when we approved
We
the
can spend
jail lit.
100% of our excess unless we raise it to 0.3 and then we're capped at 20%. Is that the law?
Yeah. I think
That's
you're
my
right. I
understanding.
think that's what it is too.
Is he live?
He sent it to me at 1:51, which is what he's listening.
Okay,
Right, he's
ask
just-
him what the 810 he put in his lit packet
Where? 810.
from last Thursday. Whatever.
I don't know what to ask him yet.
Mhm.
Show me.
This,
Oh, what I was just showing you.
What's the balance on
he had 810. It's in one of the charts.
the jail lit, the jail lit?
3,284,304,000.
And you have to keep what, you have to keep 3 payments or 2 payments? One and a half? And the payments,
One and a half,
and the payments are how much? Oh,
86,
He says I'm live.
1.7 million a year, right?
I saw it last night. He put 810 as what.
Is it
we could
total?
tap
you gotta
So,
keep 1.3.
for Daily
That's easy math.
operations.
So you have 1.7 and
so do we
reserved.
have, so Shannon is, yeah, the 810, he says is 100% of the remainder after paying the bond, the 810,000.
Okay, so that's where the 810
that's-
is.
What we're budgeting at 810,000.
The one. The bond payment, 810, and then, well, it's 1,721, that's what we get, the bond, payment. And you gotta keep 1.5 payment.
Yeah, he may have not known that. That was discussed a year or two ago.
So
Wait.
someone, So Chad, the calculator. If we're keeping, we need to keep 2.25.
$2,587,000.
Why do you have to keep 2.5 if you only have to keep 1.5?
With $862,500 is what.
You have to keep a year and a half or just a payment and a half?
Well, a year and a half.
Oh, okay, you said,
Yeah.
you said three, that's what I thought. It
Payments.
was three
Okay.
payments. Three payments. So that's what I thought it was too. That's why I was confused.
So a year and a half.
Yeah, so a year and a half. So you have roughly $500,000 in
So we have to keep
reserve.
2.58 million. Is that what we're getting? That's our number?
And there's roughly $500,000 in reserve beyond that right
Beyond
now.
So how much
So
can
we
we
can
cap?
over budget if we wanted to,
As long as you,
as
I
long
mean,
as we keep that reserve.
you know me, I'm.
Hypothetically, we could.
Yeah,
say
hypothetically, but
hypothetically we
over
could.
budgeting on expendables is not the best. Over budgeting on a singular purchase is one thing. Over budgeting on reoccurring purchase is a whole different story.
Okay, so we're expecting to get 2.25 million
In receipts for the whole year,
in
twenty
receipts
twenty-five,
for the whole year.
2.25 million expected in
Two,
So
receipts.
you have,
2.65, so
you have a little over 5.25 in yearly availability then.
The balance as of today is
531,000.
3.3 million. As of today, 3.3 million not paying the, Four.
So
Can you be
I'm
more
getting
specific?
that we could do 530,000
To break even
to
for
break
your,
even.
And the state will make a plan for somebody.
Right.
Right.
If you can overspend it.
Yeah. So 530 maintains without using that extra $500,000 of cushion. Now that we all understand the math. And
Instead
we-
of the 810,
I don't, yeah, I wish, I mean, let's see if Shannon's gonna answer that. Okay, so Shannon, we know you're listening and we're getting 530,000 unless we over budget. Is that what you also thought? See what he said.
what's that represent again?
The 530,
Yeah, what's that
that's
represent?
what we have to budget and not use any of our reserves. Unless Shannon knows something else that he's getting ready to tell us.
that's the difference between the receivables and the difference between the receivables and the payment, the
Right,
bond payment.
when we subtract out the bond payment.
And he had 810,
Yeah.
but did he know that we had 3.284 million currently sitting there before the
He does.
December? Okay.
He says, I knew that and we had it in reserves.
Did he know that when he calculated the 810?
He hasn't said that yet.
Okay,
Okay, so
might be better to wait till Wednesday with him here. But we have chat.
roughly, yes, he's saying. So that inmate medical is 800,000, so that would mean. And that number is high. I think we're gonna come in lower this year. But that would mean taking everything else out. Do you wanna have this conversation now, or do you wanna wait?
Well, I'm mostly following along. What data piece do you think we're missing?
I don't think we're missing any data piece right now. We have the number that we have above the bond payment. It's 531,000. So there is a question. There also is the reality that we will get supplemental lit. We shouldn't count on it, but we will.
Decrease.
It's going to
Right.
be decreasing over the next couple of
Right.
years.
Yeah, because they're planning.
Right.
S-
We don't need to build that balance, though. There's no reason to build this jail balance.
So historically, the Baker Tilly estimate has always came in under on taxable revenue from the years. And I'm guessing that this is in, because every year they would say the safety load is 1.2 and we'd end up with 1.35 or, it's, I get it, I get it, but every year in my experience, it's been that way. So. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing I'm concerned about with all the things you guys are doing is that, yes, you got plenty of money in the bank for next year, but you're gonna bring in $1.5 million in extra. You're already spending just in the raises alone, 1.7, 1.8. By the time you throw the part-time in there, in 3 years, when some of you are in different positions, some of you guys aren't here, and we're all stuck with it. You'll be gone.
Well, that happens.
We're
to us
all in trouble.
that
I mean,
happens to us
that's
in
the only
2019.
thing that it could get interesting about. I mean, if we do seriously take a dip like the 7-8 timeframe. So I don't know that we'll get to that degree, but you can't budget around it, but, I think I don't envy your guys' position right now because you don't have a number settled for raises. So I don't know how you even
Well, we,
work through all this budget
kinda
stuff.
do.
that you-
We
I mean, you
have-
kind of do,
we
but
don't
I
have
Except
the
for
mean,
part-time
part-time.
expense.
you don't have, I
I
mean,
think we're probably all in around 1.6 without part-time if you take social security and for,
yeah, that's kind of what I think. That's why I'm saying like
It was
1.8, all in,
1.4,
all done.
without social security and for,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because you gotta add, remember, you gotta add 19%. I used
Yeah.
to preach that every time you give a
So-
dollar, you gotta add $1.19 to the budget.
And we've been doing that.
Because that's,
I think that it doesn't do any good to hold extra money in this jail.
I think a $500,000 cushion in this is probably sufficient.
Well,
Because
think
I
we need
also
to
think
add
you're still going to
this.
get a little bit additional because it
Right.
Well,
just
we have to have a
inevitably
bond
always
payment cushion.
happens.
We know that as a minimum.
Yeah.
Well, and we're holding that. I'm saying, how much really do we need to hold above that bond payment
I-
cushion?
I don't
There
think a
Doesn't
lot.
add a lot
I
of
don't think,
value.
I don't think $300,000 or $400,000 we need to.
So I
Let me play
think,
devil's advocate briefly for a second. Let's remember, a few years ago, we had 1.6 in there. And you guys have spent it, we and you guys have
We-
spent it down
we
over the
used it,
past
yeah.
few years for reasoning. I mean, not saying that, but I'm just
Right.
saying that it has came in handy to have that cushion there.
It did this year because we started the year with an inmate medical
Medical.
of 311 and now we have it at 800,000 at $500,000.
Yeah, so it definitely has come in handy over the years, but so I don't know that I would want to drain it per se, but
Yeah. I think we could easily budget 800,000 because I think we're gonna get that much with supplemental this year and we'll keep the cushion.
I agree.
And Shannon said 810, so I think that is
Which one are you for that? Correctional or the
Stocking correctional right now.
I would still go ahead and open the correction.
I thought we did. Did we not? Could be wrong.
Maybe we just got it back.
That's the one you said you had 3.284 million current balance. I'm realizing you've got a December bond payment of 600, whatever you said,
800 and change.
6.
8.
Well, that's right, because it's
800.
1.7 million.
Bridge. Memorial.
So after the bond payment, given the current balance, we'd have 2.4 million after the December bond payment. And that's not counting what might be coming in revenues in the interim. So after the December bond payment, given the current balance, figuring no more receipts, which is not accurate, we'd have 2.5 million at the end of this year after the bond payment. I still agree with Susan on this one. We've been building and building. That's why we went from 0 to $6 million. I think we're still conservative. But I'm 14.3% of the vote. 1/7.
Well, if we leave inmate medical at the 800 and and leave the smaller expenses and pull out utilities and jail maintenance. Those go back to the safety lit fund.
I've lost my jail lit budget sheet,
The full sheet
budget
or
worksheet.
the worksheet? Okay.
So this is the 800. I know that Shannon had talked about pulling utilities over, but we pull jail maintenance over too. That just,
Because I didn't have this sheet, I don't have a running tally of everything we just talked about. I'm hoping you do.
we haven't changed anything.
Not yet.
Not yet. I just couldn't hear.
Could I get
all.
a copy of it?
And I know we don't need to talk.
Okay.
Like
Can you print two,
understanding
please, Debbie?
On the
I've lost it.
microphone.
You were right, we did get it. We got it last year, we haven't got it this year.
Okay.
But we got a supplemental last year, but we haven't gotten one yet this year.
And did we already get others this
Oh, we
year?
did.
The public
How much
safety you're
was it?
talking about now?
The correctional supplemental.
Oh,
Okay, so almost 8%.
for the jail lit. Okay. Unless somebody tells me something
Yes,
different.
that's
I don't think we're sticking our neck out that far.
The jail
Yeah,
and public safety, if you want to print it too. I was going to print it when I go home tonight. I'm looking at it on my phone. It'd be easier to look on paper.
Online over there.
It is easier. Just slightly larger than this.
Yes. I have my glasses.
Just
Couldn't see if I didn't.
about 10 times.
So, question, are you planning to shift salaries to the lits? Or are you planning to shift
Like
other
partially,
things
I think. it
and
has
then
to be-
keep the salaries in the general?
I think it's a
Shannon is-
hybrid.
Shannon's interested in moving salaries in there so that
So like
we
the mayor we
stop.
talked about would be one example, but I think
So like the entirety of the salary or
he
portions?
has raised that as a
it raises
possibility.
what, we-
It's just,
I think Wednesday, we've got to pin all this down.
Where are we at? Sorry.
You donated your payback to Kennedy.
Oh, okay.
solved all of the
Starting
county's
next year.
problems.
Go ahead.
I did.
Debbie?
I think it's going to you.
Supplemental
Okay.
jail.
How does that compare to last year? You guys have both of them up right now.
I think it was 213 in 2023 and 159.9 in 2022.
So even though we know it's going away.
Is that close? Okay,
So
that's page 10 of the big Baker Tilly packet, Kenneth.
in this instance, I say we consider we're getting it till we don't. I think it's low risk compared to the general fund, but when we have that buffer,
You must have a different edition of it,
Mine's the
May 23rd.
May 13th. Yeah,
That's why it's not park.
my May 23rd is
Here it is.
teeny tiny print.
Day 14. It's gone from 160 to 14, 253. And we're gonna start seeing that go heading the other way. Right now, it's not going to zero, but they are slowly bringing it back down. At 20,
I think that
29.
inmate medical number is high.
And that's where I was just about to ask. What's happened the last 3 or 4 years in that inmate
It's a
medical?
new contract, but
Yeah,
Not in just by having the new jail here.
I know we've got a bigger number of people. I just wanted to wrap my head around those numbers instead of it being a big number, have some context to the big number in my
I don't know
head.
if Shannon and I ever
Thank
reported
you.
back,
Yeah.
but we,
I was gonna say, maybe Jay can fill us in.
thanks.
Wazoo.
We spent over 60% of it, and I haven't, I've still got a stack of bills on my desk that I haven't done yet.
yeah, so when we met with Angela and the QCC,
Thank you, Debbie.
unfortunately, Angela thought they were doing an excellent job controlling costs. I was hoping she would see
Well, and they increased the monthly fee.
It's hospital, all this drug,
I think that's the new nurse.
their
The new
meds,
nurse.
meds, I think are in there.
Measure extra, x-ray extra, hospital extra, general extra.
Going to the hospitals extra.
Going to the, you would have these what we send to the hospital, what we get.
Like, I kind of can. That's why we put in 800,000.
We pay Henry County, we pay clinic, we pay hospital.
It all adds up to
Jeez,
800,000 and we budgeted 600,000 last year. Thinking that,
300, we budgeted 300,000 last year and we upped it to 600,000 with the additional.
That's right.
what she
That's why
said,
it's,
it's currently for this
this-
year, it's 600.
it's a $500,000 if it comes in at 800.
Jay, besides what they said about, jail medical, do you have any insights on why it's gone up so much?
They changed that.
Yeah,
Okay, never mind.
They changed the provider back to J, but if
Q-
you guys made it not
QCC.
QCC.
You gotta pay.
So looking at the year-to-date spend, looking at the year-to-date spend, you're on average to spend about 6.25.
And that's what I think is more reasonable, especially because some of these changes that QCC started didn't fully become implemented until like February, March, I think. And so I think they are helping to control an increasing expense. At least that was Angela's opinion too. I don't have a lot of experience in this.
Remember Black Hat, did a lot of job on
Yeah.
the everyday bill and trying to get any discount of that. compared to-
She seems tough.
I-
It's
I
what
don't
she
think they
does.
will
But you pay for that service.
pay for that service. Van, drop it.
But as, you know, Chad just mentioned, I think budgeting 650 isn't irresponsible and leaving 650, 700 and leaving jail maintenance in there. And then the rest, you know, may or may not be over budgeting, but
Well, this is 8 out of 12. 3/4 through the year, and we spent 40% of the 600,000 that we, in our amended budget. So it's not like Chad's right, we're not gonna spend the 600,000.
it doesn't look like, you mean the 800? What'd you say? And yes, they have that,
You got things,
what's that little fund called?
they're supposed to be using the best.
And at that point,
What we do
Oh.
next.
The misdemeanor.
there's a
Fund.
misdemeanor fund, we get about $30,000 from the state for jail maintenance, and they need to switch and use
Can't use
that.
commissary.
Don't believe that that's the company they hired.
So what do we think about lowering inmate medical to 650 and leaving,
Put the extra up in jail maintenance
what'd you say?
and move it to jail maintenance,
Well,
because they're already over. So
okay,
I
if
think-
you look at, they've spent 170,000. Okay. What is that as a monthly expense?
What line item are you looking at?
The jail maintenance, so this was through July.
Jail maintenance was supposed to go
So it's
down.
about 14.
Which one are you looking at, as how much they spend in it?
Jail maintenance, what? Yes,
And we did all the corrections, so that's all we can make.
okay. So they're spending about 24,000 a month.
For more, they pay, what's the name of that company?
So they've got 5 more months.
They pay a company that comes in monthly, does an inspection of the jail, and then goes through and, that's what their result tech. They come in and we get billed once a month from Resolve Tech. They just go in and like, apparently they assess everything, And then the boys got a whole list of things where they may be.
What kind, what,
Feel like there's $16,000 in the vault, like it's nothing for us to get billed like that.
what, do you know what kinds of, do you have any visibility to what kinds of things?
Security's in the kitchen, they'll fix the drain and stuff that.
Dog check for many years. They're kind of do it all.
But that's not that amount per month. I mean, they do it.
It could be more, it could be
Get monthly bills from, I mean,
This is Susan.
on a regular basis.
we paid them up to $30,000.
Okay.
Plus there could be little ones in between there as well.
And then, like, right here's another one, the same month, for 10,000.
Okay. How about just now, until we meet with the sheriff, on Wednesday, move that 150,000 from inmate medical into the, jail maintenance as a placeholder? It's gonna take at least that.
You're talking about moving it completely out of this out of this lit into
I'm
into the
trying
other
to
lit,
see if
right?
we can't
Because-
fund inmate medical and jail maintenance from this jail lit.
So I took out so I took out the jail maintenance 165 and the utilities 150.
Can't take them both out.
I know if I did though, but that's already at 749. And so you only have about 800 to budget at budgeting $200,000.
Smaller expenses.
I left all
and
the
you took it
smaller,
to
I
650.
put 650 on the inmate medical and then left all the other smaller ones where they are and it's 649, 200.
Is any of
649.
this jail maintenance, eligible for the remaining bond funds? I asked if the maintenance was eligible for the remaining, the jail bonds.
It's,
I think there's 700,000 left in there, maybe for 1 year.
Right, it's just temporary, it's not a permanent solution, I just didn't know.
I don't know.
I don't think
No,
there's
you
not.
can't take a maintenance out of it. I could take a repair of something that if it's one big thing, but a which these are called maintenance, that's a maintenance that they do. So I don't think we can take a maintenance out of it. Not a, because we never could take.
You could take like a roof or something big, but you can't take little
Take a
maintenance.
monthly maintenance,
so something that's a capital or a major repair.
and I can know that from when we have
The justice.
So we know we can take jail maintenance out of that 30% or that 800,000. We're still dealing with 800,000.
I think 800 is our rough number.
Okay.
So
We know the jail maintenance is gonna be quite a bit over 165, maybe 250 or whatever at the rate it's going. So there's 250 of the 800.
if you
And
did,
what was the other area you said?
well, I took the 650 for the inmate medical and all of the other smaller ones with the exception of jail maintenance and utilities. And that's 749. So you have roughly $50,000 left that you can budget out of this lit. So it won't cover either one of those things.
That or leave those smaller ones in and do the
Or
big ones over.
put them in two different lits, or, I mean, theoretically, what you could do is leave utilities at 150 and, the inmate medical at 650, and that's your $800,000. And then everything else would have to be moved out.
Okay, I'm gonna read
those-
you.
Those two things would accommodate, that's the 800,000.
Okay, from Shannon, looking through the jail lit transactions, he says there's no way for us to decipher what the actual items purchased were. And he's talking about the charm text, different things. And did you already correct all of those? That's corrected now. And what about the ones that were uniforms? Did you move those to uniforms? Does that sound familiar to you?
In uniforms, because inmate medical there's not, or I'm sorry, inmate supplies, there's very little left in it. So uniforms, we're now taking, we are taking, inmate uniforms and correctional officer uniforms out of it.
Was there correctional officer uniforms in the jail? Shannon says in the jail budget, there's money for uniforms, and that was supposed to be for the COs possibly.
Well, and I paid them, I guess I didn't realize that because they send them to me to pay.
No, it's
So
not, yeah.
they're making the decision not to use their money and use the rest.
Here, let me find the jail budget.
It's 38,000.
And it's in it this year,
Just want to make sure,
I have 44,500 in amended
I can't.
for uniforms in jail lit.
What did you just
44,500,
say, Kenan?
44,500 uniforms on the amended. Well, that's not, actually, that's what we set last summer. 44,500 on uniforms. So from now on, that needs to come out of that. Rest of the year.
2000, we did that 33,000. I'm running that budget right now. But they've been sending it to pay out all the uniforms for the COs have been paid out of what, because that's.
Right. There was a breakdown
Right.
of uniforms.
So when we created those extra line items last year, there's just some confusion.
Well, and you and I discussed that, and I sent that back to them at one time, and then I think they sent it back and said that's where the uniforms will be paid from, so.
Right. So we have this 38,000 that's not been used.
Are you looking at jail lit?
I am. So, not jail lit, sorry, jail,
Wait
380.
a minute, are you looking at the 00538?
I'm looking at the 380.
That's where they found this one.
Yeah, it's just budgeted. That's not, if you look at the,
Okay, there's nothing from last year.
the actual or the 24 amended budget says zeros.
Right.
That's what I was getting right. I'm sorry, I didn't want
Sorry.
to interrupt, but I'm like,
My
it's
fault.
showing zeros on all this. It says, what I'm seeing is it looks like it got put in both budgets. It looks like the 38,000 got put in both budgets from my appearance.
Okay.
We did ask on July 25th, we asked you guys for a breakout of all expenses in the jail lit. And we got like a 20-page report, and that was just,
Went through, made a bunch of corrections on it.
and that's just June. This is 1 month.
Yeah, I haven't sent you the newest, I think I thought I sent one in July, I can send you one now.
Okay. You received this, didn't you? July 25th. This is for just the
Yes,
month
I
of
did.
June.
Yes.
So we do have that breakdown. I'm lost on the uniforms. We got lost somewhere in that conversation.
So you want July, all of July and August, that's the transaction history, you know, that.
Or just July, so we can see what the monthly,
I guess they're really.
yeah. That way we can compare with June and see if that's, if he deviates a lot.
I send you everything for this one, so.
Oh, you said, like, I think it was asked for. This 38,000 we were talking about, Chad, this 38,000, see, I'm looking at uniforms under the jail lit. What are you referring to, that or another?
So it looks like there's,
Yeah, but uniforms in the sheriff's budget, but not in the jail.
well, in the jail.
Sheriff
there-
jail or the sheriff budget?
The 005 has. Because you can't take the sheriff's uniforms out of jail lit, because it can only be the correction.
It looks like there's
The
actually, there are
005, not-
some
not the
extra
jail,
funds in the
or not the
sheriff's budget
jail
for that.
budget.
but-
Okay. There's a lot of
Here.
budgets involved in this operation.
So these uniforms here are for inmate uniforms, is that right? In the correctional lit? So these are inmate uniforms.
I'm using it for both now because I don't have any more inmate medical, there's only $1,000 left in inmate medical.
And so you're
I can
using,
go through and pull out all of the inmates. We can differentiate between the two.
what are you using it for again? Inmate uniforms and what else?
Correctional.
and the CO, okay. Okay,
I'm not seeing uniforms in 005.
and so in uniforms, you don't have anything but inmate and CO uniforms and uniforms right now. And in jail maintenance, you only have jail maintenance. And what about inmate supplies? Is that one correct? Did it need any corrections? And is that like the sheets and bedding, mattresses, and janitorial supplies? This one seems, yeah, we already reduced it. Okay.
Oh, correctional.
Yeah.
Right.
And so even the 150 is probably too high for utilities. Do we think?
Well, given the amount spent.
That was in the beginning of the year, we took 50,000 when we had this budget or whatever, we had made a mistake, so we took 50,000 out of that one and.
It looks like 125 would be closer.
Well,
Anyone else?
the
have
spend is
thoughts?
140.
The spend is 140 for the
No,
year.
if you take the 81 divided by 7 times 12, you get right 139.8, so you get about 140. And you know, they're
I
raising.
see a spend of 66,000. Why do I see that?
The sheet I have here is 81. That's
What date is
through,
on the-
that's today, what she just
Oh,
printed.
Okay,
It's 81, 255, and that's through today.
okay.
So
And
I
it's
just
140.
divided that by 7
The
months.
150 is a good number.
So 150 is probably by the time you know, because I know most of the utilities are asking for increases this year. So 150 is not going to be far off.
And the jail video is a fixed amount.
No.
Okay. So I think the dollar amounts are good. So for uniforms, we still seem to be budgeting more than we need. Does anyone else think so?
Well, year to date, and you're still in the jail ed.
I'm still on the jail it. We've spent 12,000 from when this was printed.
And there must have been a big month because it's up to 21.
Oh, really?
That's 21.
And I think Jay, am I not am I correct in that everybody gets $1,000 budget for those things, uniforms and stuff? It's about $1,000 a person.
It's probably,
Is that accurate? Same with the merit deputies. That's where you're getting the numbers from, give or take.
at the end of this month, will be 3/4, so it's about right.
Getting the mic period, like the sound, what? Correct.
Yeah.
This is not, are you talking about
Yeah,
deputy?
well, the jail uniforms, the average, if you take the average from what's on the sheet that Debbie just printed, it's 36.5.
Yeah.
So
It's not
38,
But I know
38
this
is,
year they also bought all new inmate uniforms for the females because they felt that they were really not conducive to what they weren't, whatever. So would it be as high next year or could it be lower?
To me, it's in the ballpark.
Okay, but you know, they bought all new people. They don't do that every year, do they? They can't,
I
I
doubt
mean,
it.
how does that work? You
well,
know,
the turnover is so horrendous.
so they do buy just as many every year. Do you,
I mean-
how often do you, your inmate uniforms, how often do you have to?
The work in progress always, we get wait, final period.
They probably purchase anything from stock.
Okay.
Never in the month. Once
Okay,
a
so they
month.
just started buying a different kind and started replacing. Okay, all right, so it's probably a good number.
Maybe one year, buy a big month,
Yeah,
and it's something like that. And then we can spread up your diet line, finish diet.
right. Okay,
So 38,
so
not
probably,
unreasonable.
it's not unreasonable. Okay, so we have the right numbers, just decide where to pay it from.
you want to go over them again?
I didn't change a lot, so, well, did we set a new number? Did
I
you
said-
put 250 for
I-
jail maintenance?
I suggested 250 because it's a
We're
multi,
in the 1233, right?
Yes,
Yes.
and then,
Maybe it's 250,000
Yeah.
as a placeholder till we talk to the sheriff.
and then leave the 38,000
For uniforms, stays the same.
in inmate medical, 650,000,
Well,
and inmate supplies,
Keep that $1,000 left in your bank.
in inmate supplies.
Ken, and just to back up on no jail maintenance, the average right now is 290 on the numbers that Debbie and Bobby showed in the system today, so.
Well, we talked about that just being a placeholder till we talk to the sheriff on
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Got $1,156 in the next slide.
Okay, so 14's been spent, which is a little bit over half the year out of 35, so 30 would do it easily.
And what was that?
30,000 would do it. That's given an inflation for next year, a little bit of buffer.
You're
given-
talking about supplies, Jan?
Yeah, inmate supplies could
Inmate
be-
Inmate supplies, 30,000?
for now,
Okay, because they, like I said, they've only got 1,100 left. in the
right?
bank.
Because we only budgeted 15,000. We're talking about doubling that next year to 30.
What were the supplies again?
Inmate supplies, 30,000.
I mean,
Mattresses,
okay, okay.
And it's
Bedding.
got so low, I was taking your uniforms out of it as well.
So we have 250,000, 38,000, 650,000, 30,000, is that right?
Mhm.
And then 17,900. And 150,000. And the
Well, their
8,000
balance is
change.
35,000. But we have to. Well, we took it way down, the request is way down.
Yeah, we reduced that and then moved some of the money up to the inmate supplies. Reduced, the janitorial supplies and then increased inmate supplies, yes.
So 17,900, right?
Yeah,
You think?
about right. I mean,
Okay.
from what on mine, which seems to be out
They-
of date.
They've spent 13,600
Month old, yeah.
already this year.
They've spent what?
Through. They spent 13,600.
On mine, they've spent
To date.
8,500. I need an up-to-date
Here.
sheet.
That's what they spent to date. So even 25 would be in the ballpark. Just give it what we just was given.
According to the spend on this, that 17,900 is not enough. It's closer to 24.
You know, the
I would say just put 25 in.
25.
The janitorial supplies is 25.
Yeah. But it's already spent 14,000. Rounding up. Utilities is a big one. And we brought it down.
Left it at 150, saying 140 plus was the number.
We reduced that for reasons you said. We spent 81 to date and we're about 70% through the year, so that should be close. Chad's doing numbers. That should be close. A good rounded figure.
And, the contract up for, soft water, this year. I don't know what it'll do. Was that always supposed to be the flat price for that water at Geo with the contract? Will it go up? Do you remember?
That was a separate
It'll go
line.
up. It can go, can it go up or was it?
Separate line. Somewhere.
In the jail, I think, in the creative.
I remember being in that discussion, and I don't remember that being discussed as far as how long it was locked in for.
Yeah, cause it's up this year.
'Cause yeah, I was in that meeting.
Of course, I think,
Yes,
for the water bill's going up.
water bill's going up.
Geo doesn't get their water from the, well, yeah, they do.
They do.
That's that-
They get their water
that's that
from the
$10
city.
million
No, they get their water from the city
ARP Thing up there.
and they sell the water to us. And
Yeah.
I remember being in that meeting. Yeah, I remember being in that meeting.
Yeah, water softener is a 26,000 a year, and that's really for.
Well, that includes the water bill, I think, yeah. No? Separate? They're just treating it.
So if we leave as is, we're about 350,000 over the 800,000 we wanted to hit.
Are you leaving the,
I left everything with the new numbers, I think.
you left it at 800 for a medical?
No, 650.
650, okay, yeah.
I meant if we did our new numbers and did not move anything out of this,
Yeah.
I don't,
What did you leave with utilities? Have you decided?
150.
that
150?
150 with 81 to date, that's 70%.
And then the 83% video and the.
Yeah, what was the jail video for? I don't remember.
Mhm.
Just within the
I
jail.
thought it was to courts.
Yeah, I think it's the hookup to the courts. Yeah, that's the hookup to the courts, yeah. I remember when they put that in.
Entrance where you can go back and forth.
Yeah,
between
no.
the court and inmate.
They can do that, yeah. they don't have
Attorney.
that- They don't have the transport.
Okay. Yeah, that was a nice addition.
Yeah, I remember when we did that.
So where we at? You're keeping
So
2800,000, where we at?
we're over 351,300.
So we're trying to figure out which one of these like he did.
We,
Which one come up with 800 or don't? What do you think?
well, we need to at least probably remove, say, jail maintenance at a minimum. That gets us
But inmate medical and.
budgeting around 900,000. That would be a minimum.
Did you want to know who what happened?
That is-
That what he had?
He did.
1,151,300.
That's what I have.
What did she just get?
1,151,300.
300.
That's the total of all of the expenses budgeted except
Not
for
counting
bond
the
payment.
bond.
Okay.
So
You do see that the 650 and 150 fall exactly 800.
I know.
Is that what you talked about?
Right.
Am I repeating?
No, you're good. I mean,
I just
I
want to be on
think
the same ring of Saturn.
at a minimum, jail maintenance needs to come out or utilities and a combination of other things, but is there any chance that this receipts of 2.2 million is overly conservative? Could it be revised higher at the end of the year? This,
Everything they do is a little bit on the conservative side, but not necessarily that.
Hang on a minute, let me see.
It's more than 2.2. 3.2.
it says receipts expected 2.2 million. That's what it says.
Is that on this? I know it's on that, but is that also what's on there? On jail correctional facility?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so they use the same number they did in the May
Good,
report.
right?
Right.
It's slightly different. So this number is 225,200. This one's 225,275.
So it's basically the same.
So the 2252765, is that what they have?
Mhm.
Is they didn't increase it for next year.
But it
So
will
We
increase.
don't know what that increase is yet.
But over the last 4 years since we've had it, it's increased based on median household income.
They based it on I think they're based on the filings.
It goes up when.
1040
average
filings from the
salary,
previous year.
average Family income goes up,
Mhm.
which has been running about 4.5%.
Which on $2 million is not chump change.
What'd you say?
On $2 million, that's not chump change. That's six figures.
And I think that's why we say their number's conservative, because they go on today. Some of these things will fluctuate, and they almost always fluctuate up.
In 23, you brought in 2,112,289.
So that's 100,000.
It went up 100,000, so you could take it up maybe 100,000. I
Yeah.
wouldn't take it up any more than that.
Right,
Is that including the additional
supplemental.
supplemental?
No, because you never know what your
I know.
supplemental's gonna do.
And last year, the supplemental was 253
Yeah.
for this year.
No, I won't be here next year.
But just remember that that supplemental's going
Yeah,
to
you
start
will.
decreasing.
You just be in a
so-
different office.
You could leave it and see what happens. You might not be, you might break even.
What are we leaving? The same? Using the same numbers they put on?
Yeah, that would be too much to leave.
I,
Gotta
think-
pull out the 250.
I think the DLGF might boost it back to you guys. I mean, because
I'll
you're
have to find
taking
it.
every bit of your excess plus your estimate and still being in the red. I think you'd probably get a call, get it sent back to you from DLGF.
I
They've
think,
sent very little back to us.
I
the last
know,
4 years.
but-
First year,
Yeah, but I don't remember budgeting this far in the red before.
the last few years,
I-
they've done very little.
I think if we pulled out jail maintenance, it wouldn't be
And where we,
really irresponsible.
and where are we pulling it to?
Then it would be at 900,000.
Oh, to go in the 800, make it 900?
No, so right now, we have gone 351,000 over the 800 target.
Mhm.
And if we pulled out jail maintenance, we would be going 150, no, 100,000 over the 800,000 target. So we would go 900,000.
I think that's plenty conservative and safe. That's my opinion, my 14.3% opinion. So there, Betsy?
So
Okay.
we were 351 over, looking to, when we're
I think that falls under conservative,
budgeting 900 over bond payment.
first time in 10 days.
I mean, if you're dead on the if Baker Tilly's dead on the numbers, you're taking about half your reserve. So you would not be able to do that for many. I said, if Baker Tilly was dead on the number, like Bobby said, you're taking half the reserve, so you'd only be able to do that for
2 years,
2 years.
I agree.
Now, I think there's a good possibility that there'll be
Again,
some
that's going,
supplemental, there'll be some.
basing our
extra.
budgeting on Baker Tilly's very conservative
Mhm.
numbers is how we've gotten from 0 general fund balance to 6 million. We can eat into that somewhat, we just can't eat in it too much because there's unknowns.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Reserve.
I think we can safely, given it keeps building and building, we're just, I think we're eating into is the increase that we've always had year to year. I think we'll still be 6 million a year from now, or 550, but
Well, here, yeah, I mean, talking about the jail lit, the question is, what will our balance be next year? Right now, we sit at 2.9 million. Will we be very much less than that? That's the question.
I think we'll be a little bit. But that's still a good buffer, a good balance. And we have to have a year and a half. And that does that. You got that in pen?
So
To bring up
Shannon
on
has gone
Wednesday?
radio silent and, Mike's not here. Betsy.
Well, I think these numbers we bring up Wednesday.
Right,
We're doing the
is
homework and then
preliminary
we
for
double check on
Wednesday.
Wednesday with more bodies in here.
right.
And Shannon will be here and
It's much better to do a walkthrough and know what you're working towards
well,
than
we've done a
trying
lot of
to,
the groundwork today.
right.
We don't have to start from scratch
On
on
Wednesday.
Wednesday. And we have the sheriff budget hearing, we have the commissioner's budget hearing. And the
Yeah.
park coming back, and extension and something else,
Are we doing our own budget on?
EMS. We kind of got most of it fixed. We haven't gone over, yeah, we need to go over it.
So
but
you're saying move that jail maintenance you took out to the safety lit?
That's where it has to go, I think, either that or the general fund.
Yeah, we need to do the council before the extension office. But Joel said we really need to be here at
What's that?
8:30. We need to be here at 8:30 because this is a hearing, advertised hearing.
Unless you want me to change it, you're.
We don't have, except for Aaron, it needs to be 48.
I'll be here Wednesday by lunch.
Okay. Just in time for the sheriff and commissioners.
I would not miss those.
Miss the
Wow.
park, but I think,
Tempting.
well, story for another day.
You guys thought about what you thought about what you're gonna do with raises, and the reason I'm asking is because you want it done September 1st and your meeting's the 13th. That's not a big time window there, time frame for us to be able to figure 97%.
Yeah, it's already figured. He's done it on a spreadsheet. So
The 97%?
Shannon has. said
we
hers.
have a turnout 97%.
So you'll supply that to Stephanie?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
no one told me that. Stephanie's been working on it, so I can tell her to
Stop.
because nobody told us that, and our fear was we didn't have enough time
No,
to come up with those
no,
numbers.
Shannon did it over the weekend. I didn't know that.
With whatever she's got done to this point, though, I would recommend that she compare those to what
Oh.
he's already, just for checks and balances purposes, as a small polling sample.
Yeah, it's a
much you did.
spreadsheet at 0.97.
But-
He's actually got down to the cent.
But if there's any discrepancies, then we would know to look for those types of things based on an accidental, inaccurate input of a number. Like, just going back to what was said last week, if there's one input wrong, we won't hear about it, they will. So
Right.
whatever we can do to
Agreed.
make sure it's accurate.
What are we missing?
So I guess my question is, then what did he do for probation? Did you guys leave probation at the minimum? Did you give him a 4% raise?
We haven't talked about.
They haven't done anything in his spreadsheet yet, because that's where she was stuck on probation, so.
We haven't talked about it. I think
Okay.
one discussion I heard, and it was informal and not with the whole council, was just to use the spreadsheet because that's set by whatever council at the state. We normally go with that. And I know she says that's minimum, but
Yeah, that's the minimum though.
right, it is, but that's also what Wagner and Shealy listed. They use the minimum salary and the date in which it kicks in because it's anniversary date instead of January 1st. That is what
Say-
Wagner and Shealy.
Right, I don't think it's fair to just use the minimum versus what other places are paying as well in that equation. I think we have to consider them in the same vein that we consider all other employees.
It looks to me like,
I'll look at it again.
yeah, look at it, but it looks like everybody got a $2,000 raise,
How did
which
she-
percentage wise is not what everybody else got. Because
Right.
they were already to the state minimum, so raising it to the state minimum again is not that much.
What I'm saying is I want to look at what the state minimum compared to what other spots are
Where
earning.
page is that?
There's no page numbers. It's SO probation. It's a separate sheet that they pulled out. And she based it on the state minimum, I can tell you. So that's what's listed at the column.
Did she do a comp?
I don't think so.
I think in her explanation, they didn't and gave the reason because it was state. And I don't know who directed her to use the minimum. I don't know if that was that conversation. I didn't have it, so I don't know.
There's, yeah, she has the minimum. It would be interesting to know, based on our comp group,
Right.
how they're paid.
That would be a separate question for Eddie if she has that. She probably
That
does.
should be in that AIC binder you had.
All that I had put down on AIC was the Susan and whoever the next highest, because they had it categorized as
You know how
like a chief
Delaware-
deputy is kind of like they have it.
You know how Delaware County pays?
I do not. I don't.
It's possible that in our.
The
comp,
AIC report, the big binder thing they send out every year, I think does have that in there. Doesn't it, Debbie? Probation. Probation, and then the AIC report, wage and salary report.
AIC report. Out of our 9 counties and 40 to 50,000, DeKalb paid the highest for chief probation. That would be Susan at 98. The lowest, lowest was LaGrange at 28. So that doesn't tell us a whole lot. And we paid 87. And at 87, that's 3% below what she recommended. No, I didn't go 3%. I went to the state minimum. That amount last year was 80,000 and it's 87 this year. But remember, she gets something out of a different fund, right? Kyle? To help offset her pay. So
Yeah.
last year
She
it
has
was
to use 2
80,000.
funds to pay herself.
What was it?
For her salary, I think she has to use 2 separate funds.
Yeah,
Right.
what they have there is what her salary is, and she splits it.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
87, and the assistant probation from AIC had, so that's my assistant, did the next highest probation officer, which was 75,000. And WIS put 77,800. And last year's amount was 70,000. So it'd go from 70,000 to 77,000. 800, which is almost a 10% raise. It's a pretty good raise. When you're in the $70,000-$80,000 range, that's pretty good rate. That's a pretty good raise. Anyway. What, we went over public safety, right? We went over jail lit. We went over CCD. What did we not go over?
Well, safety lit,
We haven't gone over
but
safety lit.
we can,
That's a biggie.
the big one.
You wanna at least start looking over it? In the next 10 minutes? With all in there, secure beds, sheriff liability, and sheriff retirement, and where were we gonna move sheriff retirement to? What was Shannon's suggestion,
Back into the general fund.
the general? I wrote that down on the sheet that floated.
So Shannon did text me after I asked the question and about moving the entirety or just the raises, and he said, yes, the entirety of the merit poll
That's his suggestion.
to public
That
safety lit.
Just wasn't the number I was referring to.
Yeah. So that
And that
number
is
I,
his suggestion.
one
Big difference.
7-ish number. So have you gotten an estimate on how much this will be with the new increase, the receivable and the safety lit, with the new rate increase?
Yeah, it's 800,
It was
700,000.
Well, 700,000 more to us if we gave
Or
And what was the Baker Tilly estimate?
a little higher
before?
the first year because all the fire
Oh, the
departments.
fire
did not-
department, I was gonna ask that.
that's right.
What was the Baker Tilly estimate? No, prior to the tax increase.
1.456.
1.456, so you're talking 2.15. Roughly. Is your total.
What did you say it would be?
Like, if you're talking 1.456 and 700, that's 2.15.
And maybe 800 this first year.
So
So 2.256.
2.25, yeah.
2.25.
So why?
2 point.
All the fire departments did not request,
It's 9 out of the 14, so they don't,
so they.
they get the
whole-
amount, but they don't, the
So we don't.
5 departments,
We hire just the one that applied.
yes,
Just the one that-
yeah. They don't get any more because the 5 didn't. They get what they get.
That 0.05 comes out of the
Safety, off top. It comes out top
4.1.
or anything else.
0.41.
So 2.256 million.
If you look at the safety lit you know, we have, say, maybe 800,000 additional this
Wow.
year.
So-
And
I have, when you're talking to 700,000. You just take 25,000 off of that for the city.
No, no,
So I'm,
separated.
That was my question.
It's an additional. Well,
what do you mean for take it for the city? What
because
do you
for
mean?
the city, for the city fire department, it was a flat fee of $125,000. So where does that?
So it may not come off the top. It may come, which will increase our, I don't know.
this might be better discussed when Shannon's back, but when I went through his spreadsheets, he included that in that $560 or so thousand. So I'm assuming that he accommodated that number. Now,
was
whether
part of
Baker Tilly did or not, when they said the 700,000, I don't know that.
Josh number,
But
that number is Shannon's too.
so it probably did then, because I remember that being about the number from Shannon, so it must be included, come off the top, and then, so it should be, yeah.
Yeah, that's
'Cause
seven.
when I was looking at the spreadsheets, that's what I remembered seeing, so
Shannon
you may be
says-
texting me right now.
He says he thinks we'll be getting closer to probably 2.4 from jail lit. Okay. Yeah,
But yeah,
that's pretty much what we came up with. Yes, I think he's right.
Well,
That's what we said
And
too.
it's same jail.
Yeah.
and we're talking right
that's
now
where-
public
I know, but
safety.
I think we ended up in the same place with jail lit too, thinking we'd probably get, yeah,
Okay.
okay. Going back
Anybody
to
ask how his
safety.
wife was doing?
I don't want to ask because it may be personal, but I hope she's doing well.
No, I do
Yeah.
too. I'll
I
ask
don't know
when I
if
get
she's had
home.
a surgery yet.
So the 699 is consistent across everything. Shannon's and Baker Tilly. So I think that's a safe number.
so,
Our safe
So-
number?
Well, 800,000 because the 4 fire departments have,
Yeah.
or 5 fire departments, I think it's 14, 9 applied. Yeah, I think 800,000, 2.256 million.
Yeah.
We're adding 100,000 because I think
Cause
there's five fire departments that are not getting a cut.
that was for the city, the 125,
Yeah.
or for
City.
city specific?
Yeah,
So-
you got the fire department.
Right. And at 0.05 would have been 158,000.
Couldn't do the 0.05.
No, of the overall amount would have been 158. Am I looking at that's where I want to eliminate the confusion. On the spreadsheet that we looked at for those budgets. Or those breakdowns, I mean, of the prices. It would have been 0.05% of the lit. And that whole chunk was 563. Added in there was $158,053.44 for Newcastle. So does that mean that there's $33,000 there that we're not paying from that number? That's gonna be additional to the county that we don't have to pay out?
I don't think so. I think it's all broken down.
so I think
You see what I'm
I
saying?
do, Kyle, and I think, so those, and on top of that, plus the other 7 that did not apply.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the extra revenue that Susan was talking
That
about. That
stays
is
here.
going to end up landing at the county the first year. I highly doubt it will the second year. But,
Right.
you know, that, I think, so that's where she decided that it was actually gonna be 8 instead of 7 because the number incorporated assumed that everyone applied and there were some that applied.
Yeah, this
late
number
and some
assumed
that didn't
everybody.
apply. So I think that's where it's gonna be extra. So yes, I see where you're going and I agree with that
Okay.
thought pattern.
So if you
Do you
take
agree
the-
with the 800,000?
I think it might be even more than that, to be
think so
honest with
too.
you. I think
Plus,
it's
we're
gonna be more
get
than
A
that.
little bit of supplemental, plus we're working
Yeah.
off a conservative estimate.
So if you took Shannon's suggestion and paying the entirety of the merit plus the retirement, that's 2.344. So that's basically, that takes it all.
But he's wanting the retirement out.
Oh, he's
so
wanting
that
the
he can
retirement?
stop Talking about how we're paying for retirement from the safety lit.
I agree with him on that.
I didn't hear what you said.
Purposefully.
Yes. Absolutely. Oh, oh, yeah, you've told me this before. Yeah.
Once the money, this random question, goes to municipalities or townships, that 0.05, how do they determine the break on that?
It's based on a non-farm assessed valuation, and that had to go through a lot of calculations with the assessor, GIS, Stephanie,
Yeah,
Shannon. It took a while to get there.
to get to the calculation of what the 0.05 is.
And it'll
Yes.
go to the township, I guess.
Right,
I don't
or
know if
the
it goes
town.
It's
directly to the
page
fire
15
department or not.
of this that he gave out last week. Of this, I think, is that what you're looking at? Yeah.
So if you take the,
Townships don't get it. Towns do
Towns
and school corporations don't.
don't get it.
But it's non-farm property assessed valuation. So it took some calculation.
Right. But then the towns, is there a special format they have to use as to how that's divvied up?
Yeah, it's a percentage. And
That,
that's for the
that comes
state.
from the state based on population. And the
Within
state
the
sends
town.
down. So the increase that
Okay.
you guys passed, they also got the increase as well.
All right, I was just trying to
They're
figure
all-
out.
Everyone,
Yes.
that all
it
water
went for
rises, all
everybody.
boats.
So
So
Middletown
they're all
got
going,
2.88%, Bluffsville got 0.04%.
Yeah, I understand where that comes
so
from.
it's all based on population.
Once they've got the money, how do are they required to
They have a
allocate it in a
council
certain,
that- They have a council that allocates it as
they see fit? Okay,
within the state regulations.
and that's
for
where
the
I haven't
premise of public safety.
had time to look at
Similar to
those
us.
regulations
They're under the
that
same,
level yet.
they run under the same IC codes as this body.
So for the safety lit, if you take the 2.26 number that we said is probably what we would get with the extra tax and what wasn't from the fire departments that didn't request yet, and subtract out what's budgeted currently, we can budget an additional 756,000. And that does not include potential supplemental lit and potential conservative estimate. So we could probably budget $1 million more.
So you lost me at 2.6.
Sorry, okay, the 2.26 was.
2.6, okay.
Now you're with me.
Now I'm with you. I thought you said 2.6.
Kind of, I
I
don't know.
apologize. At the 2.26, I think I'm
think
with
so?
Kyle. I think it's probably closer to 2.3 plus.
Yeah,
Because those ones that did not take it were actually a pretty fair chunk of it.
Okay.
I don't remember which ones they were. We put 100,000 in for them.
Yeah,
If
so
we-
I think it's actually more than that.
so we're probably at like 800,000. And that still isn't considering supplemental or conservative estimate from Baker Tilly. We could, this is a little bit different because the
What's-
jail lit, we have excess we don't have any other purpose for. So I don't mind over budgeting as much in the jail lit. We don't want to run the safety lit negative.
What is the balance in the safety
I'm
lit?
getting ready to tell you.
Safety.
Yeah.
So
What is the-
703,000.
The unappropriated balance is still healthy,
It's healthy.
and there is no bond payments there.
What'd you say?
There are no bond payments out of that.
Right. So our number is probably between 800,000 and $1 million in additional that this can withstand.
I think you could comfortably budget 2.4, 2.5.
How much?
2.4 to 2.5.
So too, that's kind of what I'm thinking, 800 to $1 million. So you're saying 900,000. So, and that is good because like I was saying earlier, the cost of the raises to our pool employees is pushing 700,000. Plus we've got to move over jail maintenance of 250,000. But the good thing is that this right here, we already have included an increase in sheriff liability insurance, which we needed to cover. We've already included an increase in sheriff vehicles up to 360. So those increases that we had to cover are already in this 1.5 already budgeted, and we're saying we can budget up to maybe 2.4. And we need that for these raises.
So
Yes, we do.
I'm just going to say that since we're in a talking session,
Mhm.
if I don't mind making a comment, that my concern sitting in this chair, will be sitting in that chair next year is, right now you're estimating that you're going to get a give or take 1.2, 1.3 million dollars in additional revenue from the tax increases you passed from based on what you just said, plus whatever levy increase we get next year, which is going to be a few $100,000 more. So let's say 1.5, 1.6. The raises alone are 1.7 plus by the time you throw perf and part-time in there. And then on top of that, that doesn't accommodate for any of these other increases you'd like the jail maintenance and the other ones that have already come down the pipe. So you're looking to, you're looking to over budget by, is my best guess from where I'm at now, $500,000 to $700,000
That'd be-
minimally
That'd be.
From the general fund.
from the general
that'd be right.
fund.
That'd be
Okay,
about
we
right.
are,
Security, Medicare.
Yes.
Yeah, he just added that in.
It's about 1.3-ish, and then you gotta add the 19% that I
that's-
always preached.
you told me we were going to get more interest income.
We are, but
And that's that I used when I did my
We-
my lit
I have
calculation.
zero doubt that we will still get a nice chunk for the next 2 or 3
But it's
years,
tight,
but
I
eventually
mean-
it's gonna start
I
flowing
think we'll
down.
have to sharpen our pencils and, a year from now and 2 years from now, we're gonna have to continue to monitor it closely,
And
as we
No
have been.
extra.
the other statement that I will just make, and I might get tired before I get out of the building for saying this, is everybody's on this body has committed to holding to that 95% or 97% of market value. That could get real tough when things get real lean.
And
Yeah, things could get
I'm
real
not sure
tough
we
when it's,
committed that into the year 2050.
well,
We are considering,
that was the new
Stating our
process
intent.
that's the way I understood it.
Yeah.
Maybe
But
I mean,
I'll
that's,
take it from other employees that was
our
the,
revenues plummet. Everybody knows we can't do it.
okay.
And that
Yeah,
what happened when they
that's-
did the tax cap?
Yeah.
That what happened when Chrysler
Actually,
and all
they
these
did a
other
hiring
things moved
freeze
out?
and
We had-
started not filling positions from
That's
attrition.
why we
it's
went
not a
from paying
union. I
well
mean, there's no
above market
commitment, but
to way below. Our revenues started,
And they're changing things now, as we go, and they've changed the homestead on the acre again,
right,
to where all that goes, so.
but we
they're
thought,
Changing things as we go now, which they want to decrease what we're doing.
Yeah, the new guy, I'm telling you, that the new legislation that just passed through the Supreme Court is gonna affect this property taxes. The new administration that is proposed likely, if the Republican administration goes into office, they were just here talking to us a few days ago about all these, the property tax cuts when myself and Susan and, or
Yep.
Susan, sorry, Betsy, I was looking at Susan and Betsy and others. Tom Saunders was very adamant against his proposal that Micah Beck was talking through, and, I mean, it could have drastic effects on the
does,
counties.
does anyone think that the 97% is too aggressive?
you know,
after
I
we
think
talk
it's
about
gonna have
it?
to be closely monitored. I don't think we can promise that in perpetuity forever.
No,
We have to monitor every year, but I don't think it's overly aggressive for this coming year.
it seems like a best practice.
Because we were talking about 95 immediately. And then readjust in the spring after we get the new WIS report, but instead we picked a happy medium of 97. But
And yeah, I wanted to
I-
make sure, we still said 97 immediately.
no,
We
Did
did.
we?
Said, right?
97 immediately, but not readjusted.
Oh, not
until
readjust,
January
okay.
26th. Okay, I just wanted to
I'm-
make sure we were all
I
on the
was-
same page.
we talked about.
I think it's absolutely desperately needed, because I think I've always said it's deplorable that there are folks working in this building that can get food stamps. I think that's terrible.
Or go to McDonald's and get more
I
hourly
know,
rate.
and get more wages.
So now they
My
get
daughter
SNAP
is 17 years
benefits.
old and she made more than several of the people working this office as an hourly wage. So it's,
I don't
but-
think we're going overboard.
and I also totally appreciate what some said today, that you're setting it at 97% of the 27 pay, so the 25 pay, even at a 4% cost of living raise, you're already 7% behind again next year.
Right.
And
That-
so.
That's a game we're always
It is,
playing now.
it's just a shell
Perpetual,
game and it keeps
yeah.
rolling down the road,
It's a
and
moving target.
it is. and
It's
it's
been moving and
difficult.
we've not kept up with
If
the
we don't
move.
get up to 97, we'll have people 10% below again.
I mean, 90,
So a lot of your counties now will do a study, like we just did. They'll give them the 97%. For the next 5 years, they'll give them a percentage raise. 5 years, they'll redo the study,
Okay.
try and catch them back up.
That makes-
Instead of doing one every year, it's every 5 years. And then they just give them a percentage, like a cost of living every year.
I think we need it next year because we're taking the biggest step we ever have and we need to see specifics next year. But I think eventually we might be able to get there.
I,
I really like having it every year.
I like that plan. I think every year is excessive. I mean, as long as you were doing a reasonable cost of living based on the current market rates, I think you could spread it to maybe 3 years. 5 seems almost a little long, but, because the market can shift a lot in 5 years.
What's happening in the way, I mean, if you were in an inflationary period,
Yeah.
maybe. Well, I
we're-
just asked the question, my intent when we raised taxes was to raise them enough to do this. And so I just wanted to see what people were thinking. I mean,
And-
that was, I think it's important that.
We raised it more than I feel comfortable with. I feel comfortable in what we've discussed since we did raise it.
I think things
I-
are gonna get weirder. I mean,
Gonna get worse
Sophomore
before they
year.
get better.
They've been weird for the, getting
Iran's gonna
weirder
start
every year.
bombing Israel, like I just,
Oh, it's,
we're in some strange times.
yeah, read the good book and it's coming to fruition.
Everyone is glad they live in Henry County, very, it's very big. Can you
I-
imagine living in a big city right now?
My sisters are in New York and San Francisco. No, I want them to come
Super
home.
scary.
Do they feel
No
it?
offense to the great minds in this room and those that are not with us today, but I would feel a lot better just knowing that the assumptions that have been made about the conservative nature on the reports, if we could reasonably anticipate a certain amount next year in the supplemental lits, even though we're taking that into consideration based on the past, you can't, and we're making that assumption right now, and that's the trouble I've got at this point. That's someone that's given me a hard time.
This is what I did for like the last 3 weeks before we had the tax meeting because you're trying to use,
You're using money you're not guaranteed. Yeah.
but. So, where is this here? This was Baker Tilly's estimated the prior year, and then what we actually brought in the difference. And the difference is not always what we added to the balance. So you can see here, they were pretty conservative, but we ate into some of it by overspending.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the percent
Easter egg?
difference, from the actual.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the percent we added to the budget from the actual. So you can see here, we took in 1.5 million in federal monies, and you can see that we didn't bank all of that 1.5 million we took in. Here you can see the 1.5 million in interest income we weren't expecting.
Freaked
We
out.
were expecting 200,000, we got
Freaked out.
1.8. And then that year, here we add 3 million to the balance. So I was looking at, like, what percent could we actually over, but go ahead, what do you think?
Yeah, and then I'm thinking for 4 or 5 years, it's as quickly, as long as it took the rates to go down from the Fed standpoint, to then how quickly they went on. It's gonna be the same process for, they're gonna move very slowly to get down. In my
Hypothetically, yeah.
you know, if they stay up high for, perpetually,
We're
that
banking good money.
you're banking real good money and you could, where's the break even point on what amount of this is set to the side? The interest compounded and earned on our interest, at what point is that sustainable? Just to cover those raises each year, based on everything. I'm
But
sure
I know
you
what you're
did, and you know what I'm saying. Where is that number? If we've got 2 million in reserves, that's getting, 5% interest.
They bank, when they bottom out, we're getting a quarter.
Right,
percent interest.
right. So you
then-
can't guarantee that for it perpetually. But how long could that money alone sustain these
Right,
rates
just on
where,
our reserves.
yeah,
Yeah,
mean,
I
that's
know
a-
all the things you're saying. It's, that when I was trying to figure out if the number was like 0.15 to 0.2.
Wednesday,
It-
Wednesday.
I think it takes more of a forensic accounting degree that I don't have.
That's what I ended up with, yeah.
Or and
Oh, you
financial
did?
markets.
All I
and
ended
all
up
that
with
stuff.
with
You
this.
got
I took it to work,
Hard
but
data
I
that you
just
could use to
waited. I
put
was
some
gonna
meaning
wait.
to the numbers now.
But the
You got
difference
plans for
between
your
their
car?
budget,
Get in
what they
your
give us
car,
an
you said
estimate versus
yesterday you need your
actual
car
for
on
these
some of the
years,
taking
was
care
like $7 million
Yeah.
conservative,
Air conditioning.
and that was
Yeah.
this of the year.
I don't agree, or I don't disagree that
Working
we will
hard.
get more.
Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
If they tell us in the report
It's just a
It
question.
would be.
how much, and it's hard to bank on that money when you're